Now, we've got a great guest today, and I'm so happy that, that Matt Walsh is here. Even though Dave Bassett is going to be introducing you, I'm really excited for the day. But I would like to ask Dave Bassett up if you would announce our speaker. I already blew it, didn't I? I already blew it, didn't I?
Yeah, but that's okay. Adjust the mic for me. Our speaker today is the founder and CEO and owner of the Observer Media Group. The company got started in 1995 with the purchase of the Longboat Observer. Matt Walsh and his late wife and partner Lisa and their team have grown the company through startups and acquisitions to include 7 newspapers, 4 websites, 4 lifestyle magazines, and multiple social media channels published around Florida. The company now has around 90 employees. The newspapers include the Longboat Observer, Sarasota Key Observer, East County Observer, the Business Observer, the 110-year-old West Orange Times and Observer, and Southwest Orange Observer near Orlando, and the 115-year-old Jacksonville Daily Record. Their publications now reach over 400,000 readers a week. Before acquiring the Longboat Observer, Matt served as an assistant business editor at the Miami Herald, the editor of Florida Trend magazine, and that was the last time he spoke here at this club, when he was editor of Florida Trend. And Southeast Bureau Manager for Forbes magazine and the editor of newspapers in Independence, Missouri and Brookings, South Dakota. I bet he's glad he's in Longboat now instead of Brookings, South Dakota. Matt is a co-founder of the Gulf Coast CEO Forum and has served on numerous not-for-profit and industry boards. In 2018, the Sarasota EDC awarded Matt the Clyde Nixon Leadership Award, and in 2019, he was inducted into the Florida Press Association Hall of Fame. A native of St. Louis, Matt is a graduate of the University of Missouri School of Journalism, and he's been a resident of Florida now for over 44 years. He has 3 children: Emily, the president of Observer Media Group; Kate, the principal and co-owner of a 450-student ballet school in Colorado Springs; and his son, Major Brian Walsh, in the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force at Camp Lejeune. And I'm sure one of his favorite accomplishments is he has 5 grandchildren. Please join me in giving a warm Kiwanis welcome to our speaker today, Matt Walsh.
You all know that line about grandkids, right? That if you knew how much fun they were, you would have had them first. It is so true. Well, I have to say, I hope it wasn't something that I said, but the last time I spoke to you actually was 18 years ago. And so I'm sorry if I offended you, or as many Kiwanis speakers do, if I bored you to tears. But good afternoon, and it's great to be a part of this august Kiwanis Club, one of the premier Kiwanis clubs in Florida, and it's great to be among fellow Kiwanians. I've been a Kiwanian for over 30 years. When David, let me get my clicker thing here. All right, so when David contacted me about speaking to the Kiwanis Club, this was a few months ago, I thought he might ask me to focus on Manatee County's politics, which would be a lot of fun to talk about. But instead, David asked me to talk about the future of journalism, especially print journalism. And a lot has changed in the print journalism world since 2008, and most of it for the industry has not been good. In fact, on the subject of the future of journalism, print journalism, I would say that the future kind of looks like this. Let's see here. We going? All right. Now we're going. There we go. Whoops. Let me go back. Looks like that. It's looking pretty grim. And indeed, it's looking grim, especially for daily newspapers. And just to show you how much things have changed over the years, over the decades, when I was preparing this, I came across a photo that I have of when I was working at the Miami Herald. And let's see. Let me go up. That's backwards, this way. There we go. That's a photo of the Miami Herald newsroom in 1985. We had 350 people in one room on the 5th floor of One Herald Plaza in Miami. And I would guess today, I tried to find out, but I doubt very much whether there are now 50 people left in the Miami Herald newsroom. But remarkably and happily, I will say that that's not the case with the Observer Media Group. That photo was taken just a couple months ago. That's a photo of our staff here in Sarasota. And as David mentioned, we have people in Orlando, up in Jacksonville. And I'm going to tell you over the next few minutes, we'll get to it, but we seem to be a little bit out of the mainstream and one of the outliers, and things are going in another direction for us instead of the way it's going for most newspapers. So over the next few minutes, what I'd like to do is present a few trends and some data illustrating what is happening in the news media world nationally, and include newspapers. And then I'll tell you some about what's happening locally and what we expect to happen over the next 3 to 5 years here. So the following slide is no surprise. This indicates what has been happening in the industry for the past 30 years. Now, that fever line chart there tracks what's been happening over the past 4 years. And this transformation of moving to digital consumption of news has just been a long running trend, and it's picked up quite a bit over the past few years, especially with the rise of social media. So according to Pew Research, 86% of US adults say they at least sometimes consume news from either their laptop, their smartphone, or tablet. And then when you look at this chart here, it shows, you can see the top line there, that's the consumption of people, US adults, who prefer getting their news on a digital platform. Over 58% say they prefer to get their news on a digital platform. The second line is television, 32%. You know, and you can see that I understand why people 30-something plus percent still get news from TV, because you can turn it on, you can multitask, you know, listen to the talking heads on there. But when you get around to newspapers, you got to sit down, and it's a tactile experience. And you can see those bottom numbers there, that's radio and newspapers. Newspapers are at the bottom, with only 4% of US adults preferring to get their news from a printed publication. This one takes a look at the demographics, some of the demographics of what's happening in people's preference for getting news. And everyone, of course, younger than we are is mostly consuming their news on a digital platform. If you look at that chart there, in the yellow box inside there, those that is associated with Gen Z. Those are 18 to 29. And then the next group are the millennials. And you can see in that yellow box, 86 and 72% of those two groups prefer to get their news from a digital platform. And then if you look at the other age groups, you can see that all of us old fogies here over 65, 60% of you will still turn on TV, but then you get down to the newspapers over there, and it's down to 8% that prefer to get their news from a printed product. Also, here's another one, demographics. Let's see, this one here. This one is how they get their news at least sometimes. And to me, those numbers are pretty stunning as well. Start on the left, the lower left. All of us old folks in here, 72 to 80% will sometimes get their news on TV. You look in the print publications, look at the Gen Zers and millennials, not even 20%, even sometimes will pick up a printed product. And then you can see over on the right how people sometimes get their news on their digital platforms. Those numbers are nearly off the charts. 91% for Gen Z, 70% for some of us old folks. When readers go online to get their news, where do they go? You can see here that about a quarter of the readers will turn to a website, or maybe you have a WSJ app on your smartphone, or maybe even the Observer app on your smartphone. And then social media is underneath that, search engines, and at the bottom are podcasts. Just sort of curious. How many of you in here are podcast listeners? Not surprised. And everybody thinks that that is going to increase over time. Right now, most of the podcasting, I think, consists of the national scene, the national political scene. If you're a heavy sports person, there's a lot of college and pro sports podcasting. And then let me ask this question. How many of you actually also produce your own podcast? Okay, we got two. So in the business segment, you can find a podcast about anything. And in fact, my colleagues at the Observer are trying to encourage me to start a podcast, but I keep telling them no, because everybody does. And I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Okay, so let's take a look at how local news is faring in the marketplace. Now, I want to make a distinction that, of course, many of us, I'm sure many in this room, are not big fans of what you see on the national cable networks, what you might get in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. But people have a different feeling about their local news. And you can see here, 85% of U.S. adults say that local news is at least somewhat important to the well-being of your community. I would think that makes sense that you would say that. And then 44% say local journalism is extremely important or very important to their local community. I hope you all believe that. And then, of course, 69% say local journalists are mostly in touch with their local community. But then when you, take that local news, and how are people consuming their local news, this is interesting. This was a little surprising to me, that 52% of adults say they're getting their local news from social media, Facebook, Instagram. Any of you in here are TikTok people? No, not yet? Okay. And also there are online forums like Nextdoor, that will focus on your neighborhood. Your HOA might be producing an email newsletter, but 52% of adults are getting their local news not from their local newspaper or TV station, but in those formats. 33% sometimes will turn to the local newspaper for their local news, and then 2/3 of those people are turning to their newspaper to get their news digitally, online. Only 1/3 are still reading the print product. So now let's talk about the financial state of newspapers. I'll go back to what a grim story. I picked out 2 publicly traded companies, and you can see here a little snapshot of the condition that they're in. Gannett, the owner of the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, lost nearly $1 billion over the past 5 years. $1 billion. You know, it's amazing that they're still in business. The long-term debt is huge, $1.3 billion. They only have about $300 million in equity. Struggling. I don't know how they have avoided Chapter 11, to be honest with you. Dallas News Corporation, much smaller. You know, it publishes the Dallas Morning News, a few other magazines in that market. It lost $33 million, losses in each of the past 5 years. A lot of long-term debt. And then recently I asked the leading newspaper broker in the country to share with me what's been happening, or what happened in 2024 with the percent change in revenues for newspaper companies comparable to the Observer Media Group size. So she sent me 6 companies and told me what happened to their revenues from 23 to 24. And of all those 6 companies, their revenues had declined in every case from between 7 to 15%. Our revenues, on the other hand, continue to grow. Our revenues went up 9% last year company-wide, and they increased 13% here in the Sarasota-Manatee market. In 2023, our revenues went up 7% then, and went up locally 15%. All right, so now I'm going to share you some really stunning numbers to give you more contrast of what's going on with the local media. This is the decline in circulation. These numbers just floored me not too long ago. But you can see Bradenton Herald in 2016 had 36,000 paid circulation. Today, that number actually is only it has 1,000 paid circulation. It's distributing 600 paid subscribers here in Manatee County and 400 in Sarasota County, twice a week. Sarasota Herald-Tribune, you can see that, was at 70,000, now down. That number at the beginning of 2024 at 21 is even below that now. Well, how about some good news? There's our circulation. Our 3 community weeklies are distributing about 60,000 papers a week that are actually getting picked up and read by people. And then you can see YourObserver.com is following the trends of what's happening in the digital world. That's our biggest audience in the week. Actually, those 2 numbers at the bottom, I updated those, and unique monthly viewers is now at about 285,000, and our weekly unique viewers is at 65,000. So we have 65,000 people in the 2 counties here going to YourObserver.com to read local news. Well,
Does that include Manatee County?
yes, yeah. Okay, so why is that? Why are we an outlier? And I would say it's these 4 reasons. Market demographics, content, our marketing and sales consultants, and then I'll tell you some about do something for your community. This area, Sarasota and Manatee, is still a great print newspaper market. And you know why? You know, nearly 40% of the population here is over age 65. So there are still many, many people here who are used to picking up a newspaper every morning and reading it as they eat breakfast and drink their coffee. So we feel blessed that we're in this market that is still a strong newspaper market. But I'll tell you something else. When I showed you those numbers about our East County Observer, which is distributed out mostly in the Lakewood Ranch area, there are a lot of young families out there where people are picking the newspaper up every week, and which leads me to the second reason that we are succeeding, and that is content is king. Everything in the Observers is local. No national news, no international news, and the content in each one of our newspapers is geared specifically for the area in which it is distributed. So you could pick up the East County Observer and you will never, almost never, ever read a story about Longboat Key in the East County Observer, and vice versa. The people who pick up the Longboat Observer or Sarasota Observer will never read a story about Lakewood Ranch in those papers. We think that that very tight niche area that we serve, those people, that's what they want to know. They want to know what's going on their streets, in their churches, in their schools, and in their neighborhoods, and that's what we focus on. And then I want to say that that leads me to what our belief is about local news, that we believe that this is the best niche to be in if you're going to be in this business. And we believe that if all of you are invested here in your community, you either own a home, you own a property, a business, your job is here, your kids are going to school here, you pay taxes, your church is here, and we firmly believe that all of you are interested in knowing what is happening in your community. What are those guys doing to you on the county commission? What's happening in your school classrooms? People want to know that. And that's where we think that we have a strong future, that there is always going to be an appetite among people for local news. And because of that desire and that demand, we at the Observer Media Group are determined to be that most trusted, relevant, and reliable source for your local news and information. And I think those numbers that I showed you are telling us that consumers are telling us whom they trust and prefer. Number 3, marketing sales consultants. This is another one that is contributing to the growth in our revenues, advertising revenues. In the old days, the way newspaper advertising salespeople worked was they were order takers. But today, we have focused on training our sales staff to make face-to-face relationships with the business owners in Sarasota and Manatee County. And it is our objective to be the marketing directors and consultants for all the small business owners who can't afford to hire their own marketing directors. And so our advertising and marketing salespeople are very well trained to be able to listen to what your needs are to help you reach the potential and existing customers that you have. So we say that we don't sell advertising, we try to solve business people's pain. We try to help them solve their problems. Then the last thing there, do something for your community. This is something that we also believe firmly in. Our employees are very involved in our community, no matter where they are, volunteering on boards and organizations, participating in community events. And that goes back to something that was drummed into my head 50 years ago when I started in this business. My first boss, this guy, Oscar Stauffer, who owned a group of newspapers in Kansas, he had this saying that he reminded all of us about, and he said, count the day lost when your newspaper does not do something for your community. And I believe that. That has stuck with me all this time, and it makes a lot of sense. So what's next? Okay, I mentioned this a little bit. There's a saying in our industry as well, and it makes sense, go where your audience is. Now, I'm a print guy, and I don't do Facebook, I don't do social media, My younger colleagues are very involved in that. But we also believe we got to go where our audience is. And so that means that we're going to continue to put more effort into more offerings on digital content. We have a lot of specialized digital newsletters that you can get. You can, say that you only want to be notified of our advertisers' promotions and things like that. And so we're continuing to expand what we do and specialize what we do online. At the same time, we're also moving toward what the industry has finally begun doing as well. I'm going to go back in 1995. One of the dumbest decisions of all time in the newspaper industry was all newspapers began giving away their content for free online. While they were asking you to pay for a print product, they gave you all that information for free. So here it is 30 years later, and we're now finally being able to get people to pay something for that online content. And people are willing to pay for it if it is content that is specialized enough and is relevant enough and useful enough for you that you're willing to say, you know what, there is value in this information that I can't get anywhere else. So we're beginning to institute some paywalls on some of our websites, on the Business Observer, Jacksonville Daily Record. We're starting to toy with it on yourobserver.com. And then also, everybody is going to video. I mean, look at your grandkids, right? What do? They're like this all day long, right? And everybody is just watching videos. They're consuming news via video. I'm afraid as time goes by, I'm wondering if my grandkids are actually going to be able to read, or write, But we're also strategizing about how we can increase some of our video content, maybe do what is done by the Wall Street Journal. I think they have a morning video news summary. It's a podcast, and that's what we're also talking about. Yeah, you can listen to it. You can listen to it or watch it, and then we're also talking about expanding some of the podcasts that we do. I was with somebody who was in the industry not too long ago, and he was saying that he thinks, they've got the national scene of podcasts covered, but that's going to begin to filter down, and you'll start seeing some more specialized local podcasts pop up. So I'm going to close with AI. It's hard for you to read that, and I can't read it from there either, but I'm going to read you some of these things. That's a slide that a guy from the University of Florida did an hour-long Zoom call on the future of AI and the future of business. And it was pretty shocking, actually. It was Eric Sander. And he put the slide up pointing out 9 problems with AI. And let me just tell you about a couple of them. One is that AI tools reproduce content on biased as the data they were trained on. So if you have somebody training your AI computer who is, right-winger, left-winger, they got their biases, it's going to show up in the AI information that is produced. He says another problem, he calls it the black box. AI, wow, this is really small type here. AI decisions are opaque and unexplainable. You can read that? I'm going to go over here. You can hear me. Take the microphone. They hinder accountability, trust, and potentially lead to unjust outcomes. Mindless parroting. AI output is tightly bound to the caliber and volume of its training data. Its output can only be as good as its training input. Alignment with human values. AI lacks the capacity to model the consequences or ethical implications of its decisions. Here's another one. It's incredibly power hungry. This guy told us that when you go on Google for a search, you're now seeing that an AI response comes up at the top and then the normal Google response. That AI response takes 10 times more electricity to produce that response than the normal Google response. Now, just imagine that multiplied across the world and the United States and how much energy is going to be required. Tremendous amount. Hallucinations. AI has the tendency to confidently spew inaccurate information or simply make up facts. I've experienced that. Copyright infringement. AI models appropriated copyrighted material and intellectual property with no consent, credit, or compensation. And lastly, static. AI models cannot update their knowledge in real time or generate new ideas which may lead to misinformation. So, this reminds me of years ago when the internet was getting cranked up, and my wife was editing some young reporter's story, and my wife said, "So, where'd you get this information?" This young reporter said, "Well, I got it from Wikipedia." And my wife said, "Yeah, well, do you believe everything you read on Wikipedia?" Same thing with AI. So the way we think about it is, we think that's great because it's just going to make us more valuable. Bring it on. Bring AI on. It cannot do what we do. It cannot report about the county commission meetings or the school board meetings the way we do. It can't cover the celebratory events at your local schools or at your church, right? And it can't write the stories about some of you local heroes out there the way we do. So we think that AI is just going to make us more valuable to everyone in our community. So in short, I'll close with saying, at the Observer Media Group, we're as optimistic as ever about our future in the newspaper news world. We have no idea how much longer print newspapers will keep going, but we believe, and we're going to do everything we can to be your trusted source of local information going forward. And we feel like as long as we continue to follow our mission, that we're going to be around. And that mission is to inspire our communities with extraordinary local content and to help our partners, our advertisers, our communities, and our neighborhoods prosper. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for inviting me again.
Stay here for just a moment. Thank you, Matt. That was very informative, and do consider something for the
Thank you.
Bradenton area up here.
Yeah, thank you.
We would, we do enjoy, and I've always received some great content, and I appreciate it.
Okay.
And the educators that are at our table right there, if we keep that going, we'll have some good, more reporters for the future, right?
Okay,
Keep up the good work. Here's
All
a
right.
golden ruler from the Bradenton Kiwanis.
super. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Matt. Let's
Appreciate
get a
it.
picture over
Thank
here.
you all very much.
Let's get a picture over
Oh,
here.
okay.
We gotta do this.
Yeah. All right, great. Thank you.
All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have got 4 tickets for the fair, along with a parking pass for anybody going to the swine sale livestock auction on January 25th. Come see me if you'd like the tickets. All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks for being here.